Welcome to the Successful Nurse Coach podcast. On this podcast, Laura
and Shelby, both board certified nurse coaches, show you how to make as much money as you want in private practice as a nurse coach. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Successful Nurse Coach podcast. It is Shelby here today, and I am going to talk to you about the most controversial email that I've ever written. And it's a little funny, it's a little spicy, and it was the most unintentional thing that I've ever done. So sit back, relax. If you are listening to this when it goes live, it will be the Monday after Thanksgiving. So I hope that you had a great holiday. I hope that you got to spend it with people you love and that you care about. And welcome to like the most funky time of year to be an entrepreneur, because I think this is time where we all want to be like relaxing and chilling, and depending on what's going on in your business, that might not actually be the case. So wherever you are at today, you are welcome, and I'm excited to get to talk to you a little bit more this morning. And we're going to keep it really chill this morning. I want to talk to you guys about the most unintentionally spicy email that I've ever written. And usually whenever I write a spicier email or a more direct email, I give a lot of caveat in the email before you jump in. There is so much to be lost in translation, kind of as a standard. But if I wrote an intentionally spicy email, I want you to know that I wrote it intentionally spicy and that it's okay to receive in that way. But this one, team, I was hoping was going to be an inspiring one. And the responses that I got from this email ranged from relief and gratitude to people saying some pretty gnarly things that I won't repeat here on the podcast this morning. And I kind of I can see where this email begged for a little bit more elaboration. So I'm going to do that this morning. But I think that this topic of 7 years to create success is not one that you will see anywhere else. I think in the coaching industry, a lot of marketing is sold on you creating income as quickly as possible. And while that is a path, while that is possible for some, I don't think that that's the path for most. And even thinking back on my own coaching journey, I signed a handful of clients in my first 6 months. I went the next 6 months without signing any clients at all. And then the next 6 months, there was more. I signed more clients. And over the years, this has of course become more predictable, but even this past year, it has waxed and waned in ways that I wasn't prepared for. So I think that this sense or this craving to arrive somewhere, this craving to arrive at a plateau where everything is figured out and everything is managed and you just show up and coach, I haven't found it yet. And what I have found has been that you just get better at riding the unpredictability. You get more creative, or you remember like, oh, I've solved this problem before, I can solve it again. And it isn't the end of your business when there's a bump in the road. And I think that a lot of marketing in the coaching world is sold on you figuring this out, and you'll never have to worry about client creation ever again. You'll never have to worry about where your next client is coming from. You'll never have a client that's upset with you, like that's targeted to pain points. So while that information is helpful, I just want to be super transparent that doesn't cure it doesn't cure anything, especially just like the market. And if you're online, you understand how quickly the online space changes. It can be overnight. There can be a new platform. You can get shadow banned. Like, I could spend the whole podcast talking about that. I want to pivot back to the point here of there is what I have found, what I have been tuning into this year is a lot of subconscious work, a lot of deprogramming and deconditioning. And probably work that I should have been doing in my 20s that I'm just now doing in my early 30s. But in this work, I found a sense of overlap that um, just like in the trans theoretical model of change, there is this like a deconditioning process of when you are first awakened, when you first begin to choose a path of alignment, then there is like a detox from societal programming that happens. And I want to be super clear that you can do this work. You can be a coach, you can be an amazing coach while also doing this work for yourself. Again, I don't know that it's anything that you figure out forever. But I find that these two things coincide of whenever you start to live in a world of your own creation, um, that there is a lot of societal weight that needs to fall off of your shoulders in order to continue. And that process takes about 7 years. So, with that in mind, I want to give a little bit more backstory here. Of I was on our backstory in relation to this email that I sent out to all of you. I was on a mentorship call 6 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, a while ago. And one of the mentees in that space who is experiencing high levels of success, more success than I ever had in my first year of practice. She's created more paying clients in her first 6 months than I did in my first 18 months. So, shout out, you know who you are. You're doing amazing things. And um, with that kind of success, these bigger questions of like, when do I have this all figured out? Can I sustain this? Is this replicatable? Like these bigger questions keep bubbling to the surface. And on one of our calls, she was feeling frustrated of like, when do I know? When do I know that I have it all figured out? And on that call, I told her, like, I think it's going to take around 7 years. I'm personally not to the 7 year mark. I'm around the 5 year mark right now. But what if it took 7 years? What does that offer for you? And she was immediately like, her shoulders dropped. She took a deep breath and she just looked at me and said, I'll see you. I'll see you in 7 years. And for me as a coach, like those moments are amazing, right? Of like whenever you see your client rise to the challenge or look at the challenge as an opportunity of like expansiveness, right? To lean in and step in of like, what does the next 7 years hold? Uh, Thank you for giving me the space to take 7 years to figure it out. And we love a good nursing metaphor on this podcast, but this is really closely tied to, like, we think of the timeline of being a new nurse all the time, right? Of like that first year that you're on the floor, you are just actively trying not to hurt somebody. And then in your second year, you start to get a little bit more confident. You might know the protocols. You know where the bathroom is, and you can remember all the codes, right, to get into the supply room. And then by your third year, you have some confidence about you, right? You walk into a room and your shoulders are held high, and you can talk to your patients um, about procedures and what the next steps look like. And you can hold space for their big emotions and their fears and their worries. And it doesn't mean that all of the years that came before that you weren't a good nurse or that you weren't doing a good job. It just means that you're better at it now. You have it more figured out now. And this is what I find to be in nurse coaching as well. You are starting over in a sense. When you become a coach, you are stepping into a new identity. There's a lot of things to figure out because not only are you a coach now, you are also a CEO of a company. You are the CFO, you are the bookkeeper, you are the content manager, you are the email writer, and you are the workshop hoster, and you are the Canva artist. Like, there are so many things that you are taking on. Like, what a gift to give yourself that kind of time. And so I want to read this email for you, and then I want to dive into the next layer, right? So in this email, and it's always so funny to me. I always write these emails when I'm feeling really inspired, and then I read them back and I'm like, dude, the grammar on this is really, really terrible. So here's what the email says. I was talking to a client the other day, and at the end of it, she asked, when do I figure this out? When does it start to make sense? This client has been in business for less than 6 months, has signed almost 10 clients, and is a grade A badass. But her thoughts are predictable. I remember being in her shoes. Laura has been in your shoes, and I have walked many other nurse coaches that have also been here, walked with many nurse coaches that have been here too. When does it start to feel easier? Do I really have to go there in my inner work? I want to skip that part. I thought that I already had it figured out. Why is this coming up again? Truth is, team, this process of finding your footing, feeling confident, and creating some sort of predictability is going to take at least 7 years. The first year is wild. The third year, you reach some rhythm. And by the fifth year, you deal with all the mindset shit you skipped over the first time and you find some predictability. The seventh year, while I'm not technically there yet, I hear is when all the time spent deconditioning finally starts to pay off and you can laugh more than you cry when you're up leveling. So, what if I told you that it was going to take 7 whole years to find your way, to feel confident, and to have it start to make sense? Would you be game? Let me know if this kicks up some dirt. I'm here for it either way. And to be fair, I did ask you guys to respond to this email, and boy, did you. So, there was a lot of folks who responded to this email and found a lot of peace in that timeline, that found a lot of space in that timeline to figure it out, just like a room to take a deep breath, which was my intention, right? Of no one sat me down at the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey and was like, hey, this is going to take 7 years, if not 10, to figure it out. Are you in for the long haul? Is this something that you want to do for that amount of time? This is not a get rich quick scheme. This is something that you are going to pour your heart and soul into for the next 10 years and to have it pay off long term. And this is just something that I've learned along the way. Do I wish somebody would have sat me down and told me that in a loving and inspiring way? Totally. I totally wish that, which is why I wanted to share it in our email. But then I got a few other responses of feeling really overwhelmed by that. And I am not speaking from a scientific study, so it's allowed to take less than 7 years. But had you asked me this question last year, I would have told you that I had it all figured out. And 2023 has been the most humbling year of my career as a coach so far. I have been a beginner. I have learned again. I've really broken down some things to the studs and the screws to build from a solid foundation. But had you asked me last year, I would have definitely told you that it was all figured out and life is wonderful and I have it all together. Like it would have just been a different conversation. So I want to share again that this is to give you some mental space. This is to give you some fresh air, to give you maybe a rest. If you feel like you've been pushing and grinding and hustling and just like whittling yourself thin, maybe this is the time that you pause and take a day or a week or 2 weeks, or oh my gosh, maybe you even take a month to recalibrate. Because if you take 7 years to arrive, whatever that means, then who cares about this one day of rest? Who cares about the week? You have like long-term game. You need to rest, right? Been really into watching ultra marathoners on YouTube, and there is this woman on there, Sally McRae, and she is something, y'all. If you have 30 minutes, go watch one of her docs. They are so inspiring, and the parallel overlap between ultra marathoning and being an entrepreneur is like so clear to me. But even in running an ultra marathon, she's running for like 30 hours straight, and Homegirl is not running full speed the whole time. Homegirl barely jogs. And she rests a lot. She walks a lot. She stops and sleeps during the race. And I haven't watched a documentary yet where she finishes first. She usually finishes third, fourth, sometimes sixth or seventh. And she's still freaking stoked every time she crosses the finish line. No matter what place she comes in, it's all irrelevant because she finished. I was doing an application call last week, and someone was like, I want to make $50,000 my first year. And that's a totally doable number, by the way. And I said, awesome. I definitely can give you the foundation to help you do that. And also, if you do it in 15 months, we're still going to celebrate. If we do it in 18 months, we're still going to be over the moon excited for you. Like, the timeline for me doesn't matter. So I just want to like plant that seed early of, we have this goal and let's run for it and let's shoot for the stars here. But if it takes a little longer, it's okay. And I find that nurses in particular have a really tough time with this. I also did too. As a new nurse coach, I like have like a million stories rolling through my brain right now, but there is a lot of room to make the timeline mean something. So like, if I don't hit X amount of dollars in 6 months, what does it mean about me? What does it mean about you if you don't hit the goal in 8 months, 10 months? Or maybe the better question is, what are you making it mean about you, right? So if your biggest fear in business is failing and you go for it anyway, and your subconscious is going to be scanning every single day 24/7 for evidence that you are failing. And it will make up shit to keep you still, to freak you out, to get you to quit, right? Which is then a self-fulfilling prophecy because you're afraid of failure. And then you talk yourself into quitting. Therefore, we fail, using air quotes here. But what are you making it mean about you? In the beginning, one particular story that's screaming at me right now is I was crying on a coaching call with my business coach, and I had just signed, it was like, I had just signed like 4 clients. And then the next month, I was like, I want to sign 4 more. And then that'll carry me right up till my baby's born. It'll be awesome. And the next month, I didn't. I don't think I sold any spots at all. And I was devastated because I was on my first really big high, and then I like fell on my face in my first really big low. And I was upset of just, I didn't do it. I said I was going to do it and I didn't do it. And it really bummed me out. And my coach at the time was like, okay, so what? And I was confused. And she was like, do you need that money to pay your bills? And I didn't. And she was like, do you need that money to put clothes on your body or food on your table? And again, the answer was no. And then she asked, like, do you need that money to like buy diapers for your baby that's going to be born in a few months, or to buy clothes for your baby, or to put a roof over your head? No, no, no. And so then my coach just looked at me deadpan in the eyes and said, so stop freaking out. Can you just chill out for a second? And that was enough to like rattle me in that moment off of that like hamster wheel of worrying over and over and over and over and over and over and over. And I want to kind of offer that for you guys right now, is that if you are holding yourself to this expectation, holding yourself to this timeline, why? Do you need it to meet your basic needs? If you do, not a good plan. I would recommend coming up with a solid plan B really quickly. But most of the time, folks are just making this mean something of like, if I haven't made X amount of dollars by 6 months, then I'm a failure. And if you hold yourself to that standard, then you will be a failure, and your subconscious gets to prove a point, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't really mean anything at all. So, if you want to sit with that question, there's a mini exercise here for you of, what does that mean about you? If I don't make 10 grand by 6 months, what does that mean about you? That I'm the worst? What does that mean about you? That I'm not a good coach? What does that mean about you? And just keep asking yourself, what does that mean about you? Until you get to the bottom of it. And usually it's that I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable. There's a core belief in there that might be a little bruised or wounded, that needs some love and attention. The last thing I want to leave you here, team, leave here, is to really just sit with, like, am I in this for the long haul? Am I in this coaching space for the long haul? Can you see yourself doing this for the next 10 years, the next 20 years, the next 30 years, if you have it? And there isn't an incorrect answer to this. However, I find that with the nature of our work, with the the alignment that it requires, that coaching is a really significant piece of your identity, that being in it for the long haul translates really well to financial success in your business. So I want to offer that if you were just trying to test it out and see if it's for you, or if you want to do this just for, the next 3 or 4 years while you wait to go to CRNA school, none of that is incorrect. I just want you to lower the bar on your expectations of what the output in your business will be. I think that entrepreneurship is a really great way to explore your own healing. I think that coaching is a healing modality. So if you are receiving coaching during this time, that you will be a transformed person. At the end of your container, your life will be different at the end. But just being realistic with yourself. I think it's only fair to be realistic with yourself here. And all of this to be said is that you will, along the next 7 years, you will experience really beautiful high points. Times where you feel invincible, times where you can conquer the world, times when the ideas are flowing so rapidly that you can barely write them down on paper. You will also be in the paid coach club. You will earn money while you learn. This will happen if you follow our process and work our method. It will happen. You will be a paid coach. You will grow as a person. The inner work is necessary, so that will happen as well. And there will also be some challenging moments, right? There will be a deep questioning of what am I doing? Is this worth it? This is way harder than I thought. I didn't know I was a people pleaser. I didn't know I was codependent. I didn't know that I was going to have to heal these things, or that I would be asked to heal these things. And that the highs and the lows can both coexist at the same time within your first 7 years, and frankly beyond, I'm sure, in business. It is not 7 years of grind and terrible dread before you get the payoff. The whole point is that we get to experience both at the same time. So I think that last bit is maybe where I could have elaborated a little bit more on that email of you don't just have to bust your ass for the next, I don't know, couple thousand days for little to no return. But that there will be some moments that bring you to your knees, and there will be moments where you cry tears of gratitude. Both will happen. Both are possible. And I hope that this expands a little bit more, that it gives you a little breathing room, that it encourages you to just zoom out to the 10,000 foot perspective and look down. If you're in a particularly tough spot this morning, just remember that it is temporary. That will this matter in 5 days? Maybe. Will it matter in 5 months? Yeah, probably not. Will it matter in 5 years? Almost never. So give yourself the gift of time, give yourself the gift of perspective. And if you are really wrestling today, come join us in the Facebook group. We would be happy to support you. Shoot me a message, shoot me an email. Here for that as well. Heads up here, we have speaking of the 7-year vision, we have a goal setting workshop on December 15th. I'm going to be hosting. It's going to be great. It's going to be so fun. This is my favorite workshop. I say that about a lot of them. We're getting really good at our workshops. So, but this one in particular, I've hosted for 4 years, or this will be the 4th. It doesn't matter. But I'm excited to bring some new twists and turns to the goal setting workshop this year. And we aren't going to be taking time to set SMART goals necessarily like we have in the past. So the pace, the rhythm, the itinerary is going to be a little bit different. It is also free this year. So come join. We would love to have you. And I will see you on the next one. See you later, everybody. Bye.